Today we are going to be doing a walking tour of the southern Albertan town of Coleman. Coleman is a very rich town in terms of history, but also outdoor activities, and it does hold a lot of potential for future growth based on both. Coleman was established in 1903 as a coal mining town. The town was named after Dr. James Coleman, who was the first president of the International Coal and Coke Company. The town was officially incorporated in 1906. Coal mining was the primary industry in Coleman for many years, and the town grew rapidly as a result. However, the industry declined in the mid 20th century, and the town's population began to decline as well. The town site is designated a National Historical Site and has been left in near ghost town like status since the late 1950s. Today, Coleman is a community with a rich history and a bright future. The town is home to a number of historical buildings and sites and is popular with outdoor enthusiasts and adventurers. Coleman is situated in southern Alberta along the Crow's Nest Highway in the Canadian Rockies. Currently, the population sits at around 1,400, and many that do call this area home live in historical homes or treat them as recreational properties. Like everywhere, the price of real estate has really gone insane. A single family two-bedroom home here can be between 370,000 to well over 700,000. A few years back, these were sold for less than 100,000. Rent is very difficult to find here as there aren't as many properties available. There is one house currently listed for $1,200 a month plus utilities, and a one bedroom or bachelor apartment listed for $1,800 plus utilities. The population of Coleman is aging, with many seniors living in town. Crime is pretty high compared to the national average. It's actually pretty shocking to see that it's reported that 1 in 71 people will be a victim of violent crime here. 1 in 17 will be a victim of property crime, and 1 in 14 will be a victim of crime in general in the Crow's Nest area. Much of this crime is fueled by drug and alcohol abuse and the current state of the economy in Canada, where everything is now super expensive and many are trying to survive by any means possible. The future of Coleman will be determined in the next decade. Will it rise up and become a tourist and outdoor hub town? Or will it slip into a deeper rut and become a real ghost town? Now we're just gonna walk around town to see what there is to see here. There's many historical sites, obviously, on the main street, but off to the side street, there's some pretty interesting things to see. Now, a lot of these buildings are run down. It's been in disrepair since the 1950s. Some people have maintained their buildings, others have become pretty desolate and pretty destroyed in the meantime. Now, what we're seeing in the distance past the railway tracks are the coke ovens. This was the site of a massive coal mining operation. So we'll take a little walk across these train tracks into the heart of this coal mining district. Now, you get some really amazing views here. There's mountains all surrounding this town. Currently, though, on our walk today, there is a lot of smoke. So we can see that smoke in the distance, and that is because of the fires that are appearing in British Columbia, which is not too far from Coleman. So in Sparwood, just a little bit far from Coleman, we see that there is a lot of fires happening that recently started, and the wind usually blows west to east. So those fires and those fire smoke are encroaching into Albertan territory. Now there is a lot of wildflowers in this area as well. So, and it's got prairie grasslands, some alpine hills in the background. Now in the summer it does get pretty hot, gets up to 30 degrees Celsius in that range. But in the winter it can get brutally cold, and there is a lot of snow in this area. Now to some that's cool, to others not so cool. So if you're an outdoor enthusiast, a snowboarder, a snowmobiler, this place might appeal to you. Now, obviously, this place is a little bit dangerous. They've cut off this area so you can't go into the coke ovens, and that's pretty good. That's going to protect it for generations to come. Now, I did find this other little train track kind of coming in through here. This was to load up the coals. But as we return to town, we're going to see that there's a lot more to see in Coleman than the coke ovens and coal history. There's a lot of interesting buildings, some of which are for sale. So let's check those out. Now, it might get a little windy here. I didn't have my microphone with me, my external mic on this walk. Coleman does get windy. The Crow's Nest Pass and Coleman do experience wind gusts at times, or a steady wind that kind of blows through. It's because of the mountain ranges to the west, the north, the south. Depends on where you are in this valley, how that wind is going to affect you. Now, there is some small industry in this town. If you're looking for a job, it's going to be really, really hard to find. You might find a waitressing position, or you might volunteer at the museum, for example. But in order to find work, you're going to have to start it yourself. You're going to have to start your own business here. This is one of those towns that is near ghost town like status. It really is. There's not too much going on. This is early in the morning. So tourists have not arrived just yet. Now, on the right side, we do see the back alleys. You'll see some destroyed buildings. Most of the buildings are made out of wood, so there was a lot of fires that happened, and the weather conditions usually took these down. On the left side of this actual wall through here, there is some newer developments, some senior living apartments, this sort of thing. But we're going to cross here and we're going to take a look at some of these buildings on this historical main street. Now, you might have noticed as we walked around and as we were walking around, there's a lot of these little shops mixed in between some artist galleries, some craft shops. These are slowly kind of filling in. They seem to be coming and going, though. So sometimes someone opens up a shop, they don't do too well, they close down. Other times they've been open for quite a bit. Now, you notice some of these shops are already open, even though it's early in the morning. So we can kind of determine that this little area could develop economically pretty quickly if they wanted to. It really depends on the people that live here and the enthusiasm they would do have. Now, this is a sign shop. I found some really cool signs here. This sign has sharp edges. Do not touch the edges of the sign. And the other one was a private sign, so you're not supposed to look at that sign. It's private. Now, most everything here is kind of still intact. This was the post office, the boots and shoes shop, dairy and eggs, dry goods. It was a storefront. And this operated from 1906, I believe, all the way till 1952 as that same shop. Now, the building ahead, that is the Italian Lodge or the Italian building. So it was a meeting place for Italians to meet up, have dances, socialize, this sort of thing. It's for sale right now. The interior doesn't look too bad. The back of this building needs a little bit of help. But if we look inside, it's still filled to the brim with items. So it is a historical site. You would have to build it towards those specifications, and that can be a pretty daunting task for some people. But it is a nice building in a historical town. Has a cool view too. This corner lot has an amazing Ford truck here that is just absolutely gorgeous. Once in a while through Coleman, you do see some historical vehicles driving around. Not this old, but this is a really cool advertisement for that building in the background. Now, all the architecture here is from the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. Some of it is from the 1930s, so you do get that kind of interesting mixture of buildings. Again, most of them are wood. There's some brick ones in between. And it does look like they do host some events in town. It's another building that is for rent or for sale. This was actually, I believe this was a pub and a hotel at one time. Now the whole building is for sale or for rent. I thought it was kind of interesting because the door was open to this pub and it was very early in the morning. So I didn't want to disturb anybody inside if they were working. Didn't want to go inside to check things out. But that is the Grand Union Hotel and it is for sale or for rent. Across is the Roxy Theater. This is a really cool theater. Has a really cool sign as we saw before. Volunteers have kind of tried to fix it up. There's been a lot of donations also to fix it up as well. This used to be the old garage. Pumps are long gone, but that garage closed in the early 1970s. Across the street on the right side is a pretty popular restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Locals seem to like it. Again, it's kind of a mixture of ghost town like atmosphere and then a building, just like this blue building, that is totally repaired, totally fixed up. Small community library.
Good, how are you?
We just passed the Legion Hall back there. They have their doors open shortly for a historical event. I tried to get up to this statue beforehand, but I noticed the gate was locked. So let's check it out. Let's see if it's still, yes, it's still locked. So we're not going to be able to get any closer than this. And I think it's closed off because they don't want any vandalism happening to the statue, to the monument, to the World War One, World War Two, and Korean soldiers that fought in from Coleman. Now, in the distance, that hill, you can follow that road. That goes all the way to Blairmore, another small town. There's a lot of houses up on top of that hill, a lot of small, almost like cottage like houses. These were miners' houses. So, depending on your status in the town, you would have either a really small miner's hut or a little tiny house. And again, just like the main street, the businesses, you can see like almost like a ghost town like atmosphere to the businesses. And then there's a brand new house or a brand new business, sorry, kind of mixed up in between or a repaired area or building. It's the same thing with the houses. Sometimes you get some really kind of run down, not fixed up houses. And then you get a beautiful, gorgeous house right beside it. It's kind of a strange thing where it's kind of mismatched. It's kind of here and there and everywhere. Has a unique feeling to it. I haven't seen this before in a small town. Either a small town kind of gets run down or everything is kind of repaired. But this place is kind of like every other house is fixed up beautifully. So you can see there's a couple tourists starting to pour in. There's a little city park there right beside the old school, and they have some events going on. But it was a really slow morning. But tourists do show up as they pass through the Crow's Nest Highway. I guess we should cross over. There's some really interesting things over here. Now, I think this was the old school at one time. It's now the museum or the historical museum. The outdoor displays, you can come check them out. They're free. The museum, I believe, is $10 to get into to see all the artifacts related to Coleman and the area. But they do have some farming equipment, some mining equipment out this way. It looks like a little coke oven or something off to the right. And it looks like a fake train or a parade train off in the distance there, that black thing. Let's see what this says. Green Hill Mine Rail Bending Kiln. Split rails were heated in this kiln. So I'm not sure if this was moved or if this was its permanent spot. But I guess that's where they would bend rails for the mines, for the trains that would go into the coal mine. It looks perhaps that it was moved to this location. It does have a big, looks like a newer cement base to it. And a whole bunch of farming equipment. Now, the back end of this museum, it looks like it's kind of abandoned, but I guess this is where maybe they repair things or they've been storing things. But there was the gas pump kind of caught my eye there. So I wanted to check this out. So we're going to end our walk here on the corner. Um, we'll just walk up a little bit here, turn right, go to the main street corner here, and end our video here. But I'm going to post some other videos of Coleman as well. We're going to take a walk through the back alleys and learn a little bit more about this location as we kind of grow this channel. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It kind of shows you a little bit about Coleman. Hopefully this little town gets its feet back because this would be a really cool town if it was totally fixed up. And it could be a real hidden gem in southern Alberta.